The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Welcome back to the Nova Society, a space where dialogue deepens understanding and civic responsibility comes to life. I'm Dr. Mark Bound, joined by our regular panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon. Together, we'll unpack the stories that matter most, exploring the headlines, the history, and the big ideas shaping today's conversations. Let's dive in and hear what the panel has for us today. Today, we have the privilege of welcoming Jen Thompson. And Jen is a former Republican strategist and congressional lawyer. Jen served as a lawyer lobbyist, spending 8 years as chief political commentator for NBC and ABC news affiliates in Richmond, Virginia. Her near-fatal car accident served as the ultimate catalyst for change. Jen walked away from politics to accept a visiting professorship at the University of Melbourne in Australia. Once she was a champion of conservative platforms, but Jen underwent a complete political shift. Confronting her own white privilege and the realities of systemic racism, she embraced anti-racist work following the 2014 protests in Ferguson, Missouri. Today, she openly acknowledges her departure from the party she once helped build, noting that she has not voted for a Republican candidate since 2015. Her new book, Pivot, Notes from a Political Life Rewritten, will be available in September of 2026 on the 22nd, wherever books are sold. She also has a great Substack, and that's at jenthompsonwritesthings.substack.com, and we are privileged and happy to have her with us today. Jen Thompson, welcome. Welcome to the Nova Society. Glad to have you. Can you give us a little bit about yourself? I mean, you're really interesting. I mean, you've got a lot of interesting things going on. I'm reading your media packet here, and I'm like, wow, this is like, you're like one of the most interesting women in the world. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, Mark, you are so nice. I'm in higher education now, but for years, and this is what my book is about, I was in politics. I'm a lawyer. I worked in the Congress, both the House and the Senate. And I ran political campaigns. And so, yeah, I've lived a really interesting life. I've lived in something like, I don't know now, 12 or 13 states. I lived abroad in Australia and England. And it's been a journey, and it's been an exciting one. And I'm just so happy to be here with you all. Thank you for having me.
Oh, gosh, we're really happy to have you. So the book is Wild Pivot, Notes from a Political Life Rewritten, and it's published by She Writes Press. And we will have a link to that in the show notes and the description, and also in Jen's bio that shows up on the website. So tell us, what's your, of course, you're a lawyer. We won't hold that against you. We'll let that go.
Please don't. I'm not a practicing lawyer anymore, Mark. So that maybe that makes me go up the scale one or two notches.
Just one or two. I always tell our listeners, people I know around here that show up over here at the Oasis at the house, which is a little bar by the pool. You're either an undertaker or a lawyer. Those are the only two people that show up at my house for some reason. So yeah. So this book here, let me ask you this: is it an audiobook yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's coming out September 22nd.
Okay.
You can get it any place that books are sold, either online or in bookstores. Not on audiobook yet.
Okay.
That will likely change soon, but not yet.
Yeah, because a lot of our listeners will ask that. Is it on audiobook? Because I'm surprised at how real popular audiobooks are.
I love them.
It's like yeah, it's kind of great. But you can't, probably Amazon will have it, correct?
Absolutely. Amazon, okay. Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, anywhere books are sold, you can get a copy.
All right. So tell us about your background as far as where you started and where you ended up at.
Whew, okay. Well, I'll start with the book. I say about the book that it's a book about politics that has absolutely nothing to do with politics, even though it's all about politics. It's really about my experience, where I was born, the parents and sibling I had, and how I was wired to become a person that was, in the end, not at all the person who I was. I was born in Chicago. You hear a Southern accent, so I'll get there. But I was born in Chicago. My parents knew each other when they were really babies, South Siders from Beverly. In Chicago, I moved around a lot as a young person. I had a very, very successful and driven father who wanted to seek that same kind of success for me. So I was really wired to find success. I was in a Christian conservative household. That's how I was raised. And that is what I pursued for a really long time. I mean, I was a singer when I was young. You kind of hear that in my voice. And that was not okay. You know, I had to be something that was really successful. So I pivoted and I went to law school. And from law school, I went to the Congress. I worked in both the House of Representatives. I worked in the Senate for very Christian conservative people who were very, very good people. But I always felt from a very young age, actually, Mark, that I was living sort of a bifurcated life. And it's hard to describe that, although I really try in my book, about where I landed as when I was raised versus who I was. So I was working in the Congress, really promoting all these things until I was on the Senate campaign trail in 2002. And I hope we'll get into that a little bit more. And I got into a very severe car accident that almost killed me. And that really changed the course of my life. I was mid-campaign, 8 months away from Election Day. And I had that car accident and sort of woke up and was like, who am I? What do I believe? Do I believe in what I'm promoting? And the answer to those questions, it took me months and years. It was no. And so how do you pull back from that? What are the questions that you're asking yourself? I mean, I think these are questions that all people ask. I just have a very dramatic example of it.
Yeah, and I can relate to that because back in 2010, I also was in a car accident. Basically, not the story is that my wife asked the surgeon, and he said, I don't know if he's going to pull through. And it took 3 years of physical therapy and injections and all sorts of stuff because I got a blood infection, and they had to reteach me to walk.
Wow.
And it is
So
for somebody, you came from a conservative Christian thing, I came from a Roman Catholic. And it is something that really changes your life when you see the priest standing over you before you're going into the operating room, giving you last rites. Because usually that means that's it. It's the end. So I definitely understand the life-changing, the things that can happen. I would also point out, and again, being considerably older than you are, I would say that the idea of republicanism has changed. This is not Reagan's Republicans. This is not any of that, and that changed a lot of people's thoughts. Did that have? I mean, and again, that's something that our listeners are always interested in. What made them change, and the idea of what was before and what makes it, what makes them who they are now. I can say that my registration here in South Carolina, my voter registration is Republican. Why? Because that's what it was in New York, and I never bothered to change it. It was like, okay, fine. But back then, we're talking the Reagan Republicans. So is there any change there other than the life thing? And I definitely understand the life thing happening. Is there anything else there, like the way the party changed, the way the ideology changed? How do you see that as somebody that I guess remembers what it used to be and now what it is today?
Yeah, first of all, let me say I'm so sorry to hear about that car accident. I totally understand what that was like. When they pulled me out, my car was in flames. And when they pulled me out, the firefighters said, we expected to find a corpse in that car. And they pulled me out about 30 seconds before my car burst into flames. So while I didn't have the same experience, I have solidarity with what you went through. So I'm really sorry about that. And for me, it really was a pivot point, hence the book, obviously, Wild Pivot. I mean, you ask a lot of really interesting questions in how you framed your question, both from what changed when the car accident happened to what changed with the Republican Party. And those are really big questions. It's interesting because when I worked in the Congress, people used to say to me, and this was 20 odd years ago, Mark, gosh, it is so much more vitriolic than it used to be. And I guess I understood that, but not really. I mean, my boss, who was a very, very Republican, very conservative, reliable vote, very smart, both of them. I had two bosses, one in the House and one in the Senate. They had friends on both sides of the aisle, and we'd have dinner with them and talk through issues. But even then, people said, it's not the Republican Party it used to be. I mean, thinking about that to where we are now, it gives me hives. I mean, it just is. It is not the party that I knew. I mean, for me, I would have changed and left it anyway, because I just realized that for myself, I was following my own sense of ego, my own desire for power to amplify everything about me. And what I didn't do at that point was do any listening. Who am I? What do I want? What do I believe? So for me, it was an even deeper philosophical question that needed to change. That is a really important thing to me to, recognize and put a stamp on. But it's also profoundly true that the party that I worked for back in the early 2000s ain't the party that it is today. And so it's like, it puts an even finer point, I think, on your point, which is, yes, I changed. I was not living a life of authenticity. And now I can't, I don't even recognize the party that I once worked for. I'll just say one other thing, that I worked with a lot of really important people back then, most of whom have risen in the party and are now very strong Trump supporters. One of a very good friend ran his campaign. I had a colleague who I hired who ran Kanye West's campaign a few years ago. One of my closest colleagues works very, very closely with Ted Cruz. So, it's like I see this evolution in myself, one direction, and I see the evolution of people I worked for back when the party was something more like you talked about, going in a totally different direction. It is a very strange feeling. I feel like I'm in Twilight Zone some of the time.
I wanted to say, sorry, that I'm very sorry about your car crash also.
Thank
and
you.
Mark, I never knew you were in a car crash. This is 2010
Yes.
that this happened? In 2010, I didn't know that, Mark. In 2010, I was hit by a car and wound up with surgery, and my leg still bothers me. But what I'm wondering, Jen, is you were saying that you noticed a pull in yourself for power, and that the Republican Party was becoming more vitriolic and becoming more aggressive and more of veering off into its own pull for power, and it was completely changed. I realize that you're not part of the Democratic Party, but I wondered whether you noticed the same alteration in trajectory, or a trajectory change in the Democratic Party, or has that remained the same?
Yes, Brooklyn. Yes, that was part of the issue for me, is that when I was working in Republican politics, I saw the same nasty dirtiness in the Democrats. It's hard for me even now to say I'm one party or the other, because I saw the same stuff on both sides of the aisle. It was less about the politics and more about the ugliness of the campaigning. I mean, I talk about this in my book. I had a highly untrue, very accusatory story written about me and my boss on the front page of the Kansas City Star that was fed to the reporter by Democrats. And I ultimately got sued for that. Now, I was totally cleared 18 months later, but that is politics at its worst. And I endured that from the Democrats. So I'm really here more to talk about political authenticity, finding who you are, asking the tough questions, not just posting random, terrible things on Facebook and trying to be, some sort of hero for a cause. I see that all the time, and I think, what is the point of that? The reason I wrote my book was not to lift up one party or another, not at all. It's about finding that authenticity in our own selves so that we can be authentic on the political stage and in every stage of life. And that's just really important to me. And that's what I've tried to do, for the last 20 odd years, is to dig deep, to ask the important questions, not lobbing pro or con for party. I think both parties will be equally interested and equally horrified by by my book, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Jen Thompson for president. But with social media.
Wait a minute. It was always me for president. Now you've given up on me?
I vote for Mark.
Oh, wow. Wow. No, that's it.
Vice
You're
president.
off the campaign trail, Brooklyn. Out.
No, Mark,
Wow.
You're going to be vice president. You never.
Oh, now
wanted
I'm
to be
vice president. Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Well, you never wanted to be president. No,
I never
but
wanted to,
seriously,
no.
but with social media and disinformation and all this stuff, I mean, it's nobody knows what's true. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can know what's true or whatever, and it becomes impossible to even know what is fake or real.
Yes.
And the authenticity, as you say, is completely absent. The country is being lost in this, and the American people are being lost in this, and no one knows what or whom to believe anymore. So how do we get that back?
Well, first of all, Brooke, I think what you've got to look at that is that it's our own problem. Scott and I always say nobody's coming to save us.
I know that, but Jen
the only
is coming
people that
to
can come and
us.
save us is us, and I totally
No,
understand what
Jen's
Jen is
coming to
saying.
save us.
Jen, I totally understand exactly what she's saying. Eventually, we have what you've grown up, what my parents instilled upon me back in the 60s. But that controlled my life until I actually got out of that environment, went to college and stuff, and learned wow, there are black people in that you can interact with, because where I was from in the upstate of New York, there were none. And you never got to see them, and you evolve a little bit, but you've got to be willing to evolve. You got to be willing to evolve that personality a little bit, and unfortunately, that's called work. And we have a lot of people here in this country and all over the world that's just more work than they want to put in. And I always said, when we look back at the parties, and Jen, you're exactly right. The Democrats are just as nasty as the Republicans. And anybody that says, the Democrats are saintly, no, they're not. No, they're absolutely not. I was reading on your media guide about lewd comments about you and Monica Lewinsky. I mean, it's are you kidding me? But they'll use anything they can, any dog whistle they could put out there. They'll trash whoever, Democrats included, to be able to get themselves ahead. And we've said here numerous times, at one point in time back in our time, Democrats and Republicans would disagree on how to solve a problem. But they could agree that the problem exists. We exist in a political world today where they can't even agree if there's a problem that exists. And I think it's important for people like you that we're actually in that environment to point out from a very excellent perspective that this isn't just, hey, the Democrats are great and the Republicans are evil. Hey, you don't have to vote for somebody that's in your party, D or R. That should not determine your vote. It should determine your vote of whether or not their platform meets your needs in your own interests. And we don't do that anymore. And I think that's one of the things. So my question to you, Jen, is how, as somebody that basically had that epiphany, what do you think would be the approach to help other people, other than having a life-changing accident, to make them have that epiphany too? To be able to understand, not think the way you do, or the way I do, or the way Brooke does, but actually have that evolution of their views.
Oh, both of you made so many important points, and my mind is just reeling because there's so many things I want to say. One of the things that you said, Mark, was what I call easy button thinking. And I think, I've been doing this for 20 years. You called my car accident an epiphany, and I appreciate that. And it certainly was. But it wasn't easy or neat or quick. It was messy. It was horrible. I mean, I just wrote in my recent Substack about some of the things. I mean, my Substack are just these sort of mini essays, what it took for me and what I had to sacrifice to really evaluate who I was and where I was coming from and what I believed. I mean, I took a over $200,000 pay cut when I left politics. I lost almost all of my friends, all of whom obviously were Republicans, because that's what I chose at that point. I, had to sell actually everything in my life. And it took years of breaking down what I was thinking, how I was taught, and evaluate that. That is not easy. It's horrible and hard. I mean, the rewards are there are no equal to the rewards that I've gained because I've become whole, in my view, but it's not easy work. So that's the first thing. I want to be really honest about that. And some are willing to do that and open themselves up to that. Others are not. But I think, maybe especially for women, but maybe not. Talking to you, Mark, it seems like there's a lot of parallels in our experience. I do have a lot of hope. I see, as I'm launching this book, it comes out September 22nd, Wild Pivot. I see every time I speak, people ask these kinds of questions. Like, they want this kind of dialogue. Not that we're going to end up in the same place. So many of us don't end up in the same place. And that's wonderful. But to have the honest, authentic, real dialogue where we're talking about real things. And I'm seeing it everywhere I go. And so I have a lot of hope in the future. And I think there are so many of us out there that crave the authentic, real conversations. So yeah, I'm always a half glass full person, and I am here too. I see hope. And I think that there are people craving these conversations. I truly do.
Yeah, and I think your book is going to, help a lot of people have that conversation. There is one thing I got to ask about, though. Tell me about the Golden Goddess.
Oh, oh gosh. Wow, I don't even know where to start. But here's what I'll say. I found, after my car accident, I found a different kind of spirituality. It's taken me decades to unpack it. And the longer I've been in the process, the less I think I know about who I am spiritually and the divine, the universe, God, whatever that is. But I saw something after my car accident that was really new to me. And that was that, I'd always thought of this divine sort of out there. And there was a sense that I had of the divine also living in me. Not that I'm a god. I've worried about using that phrase, even though that's what I've used, that they'll think I'm a goddess or that I'm somehow God. Oh my gosh, I'm the furthest thing from that. But it's like there's a soul piece that I discovered where the divine is much bigger than me. It encompasses all of us, but it also lives in me. And that part of my search, Mark, has been to figure out what that is. What I keep holding my chest because it's like a tether that I feel that pulls me, but it's also asked me really difficult questions. It's part of what has sustained me in the darkest moments where I didn't know who I was, where I was asking really difficult questions. And why am I doing this? And, I've talked about all this stuff, but it's been a it's been hard. And I had been criticized, been maligned. People thought I was a fool. Who gives up what I gave up? Nobody. Does that mean something about me? I've really asked those questions. And it's that sense of the golden goddess. That's what I call myself, far from a god, but the tether that I feel to whatever it is in this universe that is divine and omnipresent, which I believe. I can't put a name on it exactly. Is it God? Maybe. But I believe all of us have that within us. I call it the golden goddess.
I think that's something that's going to make your book very relatable to a lot of our listeners, is the fact that it's just not, like you said in the beginning, it's about politics that's not politics.
Exactly.
And it can speak to a lot of different people. The idea, and the golden goddess, when I saw it, I thought, I got to ask about that. But the fact is that, people can get this epiphany can come from very different places.
Totally.
It doesn't have to come from a tragedy. It can come from something very simple. I think if the Mets win the World Series, I'll have another epiphany, maybe. And that's not happening this year. Or if the Giants win the Super Bowl, probably not happening this year. There's a whole bunch of different things there. But the fact is that it doesn't have to be a tragedy. It doesn't have to be something even earth-shattering. It can be something very, very simple that we relate to and say, wait a minute, is everything I thought, maybe, do I have to rethink it? And a lot of that's a maturity there, too. Because let's face it, the way we thought when we were teenagers is a heck of a lot different, hopefully, than we think today. And the world changes. The world moves on. And I think that that's something we also have to understand that can cause that epiphany, that the world moves on and that we can adjust to it. We don't have to stay stuck. And I think your story here is a great example of somebody that says, you know what? I don't have to be stuck. And when you say, well, I gave up everything, you know what? That's stuff. That's stuff. Who cares? It's stuff. And I think this is going to be not only, and we're going to really hit this up for our listeners. I think this is going to be, for a lot of our listeners, this is going to be probably eye-opening and something that allows them to have some self-reflection, especially when we watch somebody else have that self-reflection in front of us. And then it might help us do the same thing. And I think that's one of the big things. Go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, well, you were true to yourself. And you were true to your soul, or to who you were inside. And so many people, I keep hearing so many individuals in these talk programs or whatever, well, Republicans say that they disagree with Trump privately and this and that, but publicly, they won't say it. They don't have that fortitude. They're expressing a pusillanimous lick-spittle attitude, and you didn't do that. Not, and as you say, who does that? Somebody who has an internal strength to stand up and say, I don't believe in what I was doing before. I'm not that person, and I don't want to do that. That doesn't make me happy. Okay, so I'm done. And you walk away. And you say, I'm going to live a life that's authentic to who I genuinely am. And bye-bye. I don't need all this. And if the people whom you thought were your friends had been your friends, they would still be your friends. And it wouldn't matter to them whether you were Republican or not. And the closest I can come to that is being the parent of a transgender child. You find out who your friends are when you happen to, if your child gives you permission to speak about that. Because people who are, well, that's not normal. That's this, that. Okay, then that tells me a lot about that other person, doesn't it? I don't need that person. So that tells you a lot about the people whom you thought were your friends. If they cared about you, the person, they wouldn't care whether you followed Republicanism or Trumpism or this ism or that ism. They would say, how wonderful, Jen, you found yourself. great. You know,
So that brings us
let
to
me
a
be part
question
of
from
your
the book,
journey.
Jen.
Yeah.
In Wild Pivot, you write, in the end, the soul will have her say.
Yes,
Her say.
exactly.
Her say? Okay, her say.
Yes, well, yeah, for a woman.
Anyway, we'll have her say, how long can someone effectively ignore their own truth before it forces a pivot?
Yeah, well, I mean, people
I
who
mean, I think
don't,
that's a very
you wind up guilt.
that's a profound statement. Because there's people that live their entire lives without making that pivot.
Mhm. And they're miserable. And they're using substances or lying to themselves. And
She's thinking.
somehow
We could see Jen
they
thinking.
continue to lie to themselves. I guess they're psychopaths. And they can lie to themselves and everyone else, I guess. I mean, I can't understand that type of mentality, but
So many important things that you're raising. Yeah, the soul will
Well,
have
good
her
thing we're
say.
probably going to have you back regularly so you can go through all these things. We're ready.
I hope so.
That would be I'm actually writing down
win-win for
questions
me.
as we're going
Thank
along,
you. I
and
love these
I'm like,
questions.
no, we got it. And you'll have
No,
even.
I'm delighted. I'm just
It'll be even
delighted.
more
And
fun with Scott because Scott's more the philosophical guy than I am. Scott, unfortunately, Scott's dealing with a thing, so he was not able to be here today, which he was very sorry about. But yeah, he'll have a lot of fun. Yeah, and you'll have a
I'll
lot of fun
accept
with him.
anytime y'all invite me back. I love these questions and the way that you're putting them, because they're really causing me to think and to reflect. And to me, those are the best kinds of questions. A couple of things. Yeah, I believe the soul will have her say or his say, or their say. I believe that whether in this life or thereafter, I believe that life always catches up with us. I believe that. And for me, it caught up with me early. I mean, something you said, Brooklyn, that I've been pondering is about, because I've thought a lot about this, and I certainly don't have all the answers. Maybe I don't even have an answer, but it's something I've thought about with regard to those who talk about Trump supporters and tend to just fall in line, which I'm not debating or even saying is incorrect. I've witnessed much of the same. But I wonder also about how many of us do that in our own daily lives, where we don't ask the tough questions, and yet then we throw these lobs at politicians. I mean, politicians, people who are famous, I mean, they put themselves out there, and they, in terms of politics, they represent us. So we have the opportunity to do that. I would love, and I talk about this in my book, about how easy it is for all of us to look at politicians and criticize them, and they should be held accountable. That's what democracy is. You asked me earlier, Mark, about how each of us, without a trauma or a tragedy, and on this call, I've heard all of us talk, each of us talk about something that has deeply impacted us. As I've been talking about this book, my story is really interesting. I've met some really interesting people. I've done some incredibly interesting things. I ran a Senate campaign that won the Senate back for Republican control. But at the core, I think the story is profoundly relatable to all of us, because each of us has these same exact struggles about trying to be authentic and honest and ask the tough questions and show up to help not only ourselves and our families, but our democracy thrive. So I really think that each of us has the opportunity, and for some of us, the willingness to do that. And I'm hoping that my book can be one other way that people wake up a little bit and ask those tough questions. Because I think even though we're all so different, we're all fundamentally pretty similar. So that's how I'll answer.
So let me ask you this. You were in this environment in politics. Could somebody that has had the pivot that you've had, asking yourself those hard questions, can somebody survive in politics today with that attitude, with that ideology, or would you be run over by, the politics of today? I mean, we see people. I mean, let's face it. One minute he's the worst person in the world. Next minute, he's the best person. They can't stick to it. So one of the big things is you pick your truth and you stick with it, as opposed to waffle on the thing. Is there a hope for somebody like yourself to be able to navigate through the political climate of today, or is it just too toxic now?
Yeah, the funny and probably true answer is I think I'd be a total speed bump. I think I'd be a total speed bump. But I'd love to think it was possible. I mean, do you remember that show, The West Wing? You probably remember it. So I didn't watch it at the time because it was on when I was living this life, and it was just too much. And I didn't really appreciate the values and all that. But I've watched it recently, and I now read about it. And Martin Sheen is a huge. I love him. I love what he stands for. Talk about a good person. I just adore him. And I think that show was so popular when it was. And again, I wasn't on the bandwagon when it was, but even today it's maintained because people long for the hope, for holding that hope that is possible, that someone with principle and value and it allows themselves to evolve and change can be successful, because that's what we really all want. Can it happen? Gosh, I really think I think it's going to take a little bit more time.
just a little.
What about a third party? Do you think that's possible?
No, again, I love the idea of it, but I mean, third parties are basically a foil. And, I love, you think of Ralph Nader 1,000 years ago, a third party is amazing, at least in my view, for raising issues, for changing a little bit, if they're successful enough, for changing the discussion, the conversation on the campaign. And it depends, obviously, on what level of race you're talking about, president versus Senate, House, local races. It might be more true in local races. I think it's hard to envision, just being a total realist.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if I was in England, I would have voted for Count Binface against Nigel Farage. And the funny thing is Count Binface, and if for our listeners who don't know, he was a comedy candidate running for parliament, and he walks around with a trash can on his head, and he got votes. Now, I think that's great that he got votes. People said, "Yeah, I'd rather him than that other guy."
Sorry, so jumping ahead, if I may, and Jen, you don't have to answer any question you don't want to. I keep worrying about the upcoming elections. And I know, Mark, you probably don't. Yeah, see, there he goes. 2026. And I keep hearing, well, a national emergency or this or that, or ICE and you've heard about the electric gloves.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I'll just say, Brooklyn, before you ask your question, I live in Southern California. I work on a college campus. Mm-hmm. 42% are of Latinx origin. ICE is a very real thing for me. So I just want to say I'm listening closely to where you're going.
You've seen them.
With your question.
Okay. Well, Mark's wife was stopped by ICE. I have not seen
that. Didn't work out well for him.
So I'm concerned about that. And I do think that if Trump has a pulse, he'll be around and stay for a third term. I don't see that he's leaving.
Mark, you seem like a person who would be counting down the days to the election, 77 days away, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm watching. I live in California, so we have sort of a different rhythm of these things, perhaps, than I lived on the East Coast for 25 more than that years, so there's a difference. I'm terrified, Brooklyn. I'm terrified. My Kirkus review, I'm so proud of my Kirkus review. And one of the things they said is this is not a typical political memoir. This is not a memoir where I'm calling people out. I mean, the only person who looks bad in this memoir is me. It's not about calling people out. It's not about making people or even a party look bad. This is about personal transformation. So I will say that. And I wrote it very deliberately, not to harm, but to hopefully have an impact on, people waking up to their own selves. So that is true. However, of course, I'm terrified, stepping out in this climate, being public and growing more in that way. It's hard. It's scary. And I have teenage children and I don't want to subject them to anything. I don't know. I've grown in strength over the last 20 years. And as I've been writing this memoir, and I feel that I'm doing the right thing. And so I have to let that guide me, but it ain't easy. It ain't easy.
Yeah, I am counting the days. Yes, absolutely.
I've known you for an hour and I knew it.
But I'm more of a realist. Now, imagine a Catholic from New York and a Jewish girl from Chicago, North Chicago, not South Chicago, living down here.
Is that your wife?
That's my wife.
Okay.
Yeah, she's from Skokie and Lincolnwood.
Okay. Well, yeah. I was
the other
born,
side
my
of
parents
town.
are Southsiders. I was born in Hinsdale.
Go Sox. Yeah. You guys are Go Sox. She's more Go Cubs.
We're actually Cubbies, but
okay. All
we're
right.
Cubbies,
Everybody's a bear. Everybody loves the
and
bear.
the bear. Yes.
The Bears.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, down here, the first question I ask you is what church you go to. That's the first thing to ask.
Okay. Well, so I was raised a Christian Scientist, if you know what that is. I talk a lot about that in my book.
Yep.
And with my brother was the editor of the Christian Science Monitor for about 15 years. He lives in Berlin. He's my heart. I love him so much. I'm not a Christian Scientist and haven't been for several decades. I was baptized an Episcopalian when I turned 40. I'm now 54. And I would say now I'm a combo burger of lots of different things. I have attended Richard Rohr, Father Richard Rohr's living school in New Mexico. I really am a combo burger, and I'm okay with that. For a long time, I really felt like I needed a religious identity. And so I explored all sorts of faith. My book talks a lot about this. I spent a lot of time, Mark, at an Episcopal silent monastery in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just across the Charles from Harvard. Mm-hmm. And I was very transformed there. I've been there 4, maybe 5 times by just the soul experience that I had there. It's silent. You can't talk. And for someone like me, that was an awakening. But I felt like I sort of met myself there. I talk about, you asked me about the Golden Goddess. That being silent with yourself is the most terrifying and liberating thing when you can embrace it. And that's what I found there. So I'm a combo burger now.
Well, that's good, because I consider myself a cafeteria Catholic. I pick and choose what I want to follow by, and if it was a rule before the 17th century, we probably ought to relook at it. And again, the book is Wild Pivot: Notes from a Political Life Rewritten. It will be released and distributed by Simon and Schuster in September 23rd. Correct?
22nd.
22nd. Okay. Well, everybody go on the 22nd. Hopefully, I'll be able to get one like on the 19th. It covers a lot of area. We have a lot of our listeners that think the same way. And we have a lot of listeners that think exactly like Brooklyn does, who basically, I'll get the emails and say, Mark, how can you be so blind to what's going on? Because I haven't seen it yet. I firmly believe the system will hold. That's one of the main things I always say. The system, it'll bend, but it'll hold. And, but
I don't know about that.
Well, but the people that listen to this podcast, and we've got over 125,000 subscribers now, the people that listen to this podcast see it very differently. And your book really expresses, and I'm going to call it what I see it as being, an epiphany, a complete change. And, I think it's important for people to realize that even somebody that's entrenched, which I would say just by reading this thing, you were entrenched at one time.
I mean,
you were
1,000%. I was entrenched.
You were on the Maginot Line there. You were right there in the thing.
1,000%.
And you were able to pull yourself out of it. And we have talked so much about, and I try to avoid if we're not going to do the Trumpism thing, the idea, the cult mentality. And again, I'm going to tell you right now, that goes both ways. If you can't see a good in both sides somewhere, and I'm not saying when the guys are marching in Charlottesville with the torches and saying there's good people on both sides. No, that's not the way it is. What I'm saying is that both parties, there are moderates. The problem is that we only hear from the far right, far left. Those are the ones that, as my grandfather used to say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The moderates that sit in the middle, you don't hear as much about, but there are plenty of them. They are not the enemy. And I think this allows people, especially the way that you reach are on the journey. And I'm going to make the assumption you're still on the journey. And you're going to continue to be on the journey. And the fact is that if people can see that somebody that is that entrenched can actually come out and start to change their attitude, I think that's an important lesson for a lot of people out there, that they can start to understand that this isn't inevitable, that good can come out. And I'm not saying that what you were doing when you were in the Republican Party was anywhere bad. I give you all the credit in the world. I really do.
I really appreciate that. And I see Brooklyn wants to jump in. I just want to say thank you. I feel really seen by that comment, Mark. I feel really seen by that. And thank you. I've worked really hard, and that is what this book is about. So,
but I was just thinking back, Jen, to the beginning where even you were saying that even when you were entrenched, there was like a little niggling, little tiny flame, like a little tiny birthday candle, those little candles. And it was just not even lit all the way, just a little, like the little glow.
Yes.
Where the
I call it a pen light. I call it a pen light.
Yes. Yes. So I was thinking more of, like the candle is not quite lit and you're not sure if it's going to go out or if flame is going to come on or not. Yeah. But it was there and it was niggling. And I'm not sure if everybody's got that or if their spark can light, it's like if you've seen those I don't know what they're called. My son gave me one. It's people use them to light fires. It's like a rod, and then you've got the stone that you bash the thing with, and the sparks come out. So sometimes people can light the fire, and sometimes it's a problem, and it takes a little while, and sometimes the fire doesn't light at all. But for you, it lit. So other people who may have that spark can see your transformation. Maybe for them, a spark that otherwise would not have been lit will be. And I wonder if more of them will be women than men.
I believe, maybe this is my combo burger spirituality, but I think we all have that spark. I've never talked to anybody ever, whether they're willing to, walk this kind of journey or think I'm absolutely nuts, who I don't think has that spark. And I love the way you described that. It was so beautiful to me. And yes, I mean, that was present for me. I just shut it down because I didn't want to deal with what it was saying. It was saying things I didn't want it to say. I did not want that to be true about me. So the easiest way to shut that down is to not listen and to keep charging forward. And so that's what I did. And I can't say that experience is the same for everyone, but I think it's the same for a lot of us. We don't want the job not to be the right job. We don't want the marriage to not be the right marriage. We don't want our philosophy not to be the right one. It's too hard. And so we turn it off. That's what I did. But I've not met anyone for whom I didn't see some sort of spark just by the conversations that we have. Maybe that sounds Pollyanna. Mark, you might call me out on that, but I do believe it. I really do. And I've done so much work for myself, but also research about this. I think we all have it. And I think that's why when I talk like this, it resonates, because people are like, yep, I get it. No, I hate politics. I hate Republicans. I hate Democrats, whatever it is, but I get it. I that feels true to me. And I'll just say this, that the only thing I want people to take away if they read Wild Pivot is she told the truth. She told the damn truth. That's my goal.
Well, no, I don't think it's as Pollyanna. I really don't. I am a firm believer that there is plenty of room for everybody in this world, and that the diversity of ideas and the diversity of personalities is what makes it what it is. As I say on our podcast here, you're going to have, there's three very different people. All went to the same university, all have the same degree, but all of us focused on something totally different.
I love
because
that.
our backgrounds made us, focus on something different. And as a father of 4 daughters, I can definitely say that in September, when this comes out, I think this is going to be a purchase for my daughters, so that I could send to
Highest
them.
Compliment
Because
ever.
I think
Highest
that they would
compliment
be very. I think they'd be very interested in this. And again, it is a matter of, we do have the capacity to change. I do believe everybody has it in with them to change, even Brooklyn. Well, maybe not Brooklyn, but anyway, Scott definitely can't change. No, Scott will never change, and hopefully
we can all change.
We'll see.
And become more real to who we are. I believe it.
But some of us might change and become an evil overlord, so you'd never know. You got to be very careful what you wish for there. But the fact is that I think that, this is, and I've been saying this all along, and the more I read on this, and I can't wait till it comes out, I really can't. It really is, I think it's going to speak to a lot of people. A lot of people, and I think many books, when they come out, like if you read a lot of books, like Maggie Haberman just came out with a book, it speaks to the people that's what they want to hear, that want to trash on the administration. Those are the people that are going to be all over it. And you see a lot of that coming out, especially, in political books today. But the fact is, this doesn't speak from that narrative. This does not speak from that voice. This does not speak of, all the Republicans are evil. This does not speak to, all the Democrats are good. This does not speak to any of those things. This speaks to a fact that internally we all can change, and we all can become better, truer selves to ourselves. And that probably is something that makes it really fulfills our lives. I mean, you say in here that, yes, you were in a very powerful position in the Republican Party back in the day. I would take the hazard guess that you're a more powerful person today than you ever were back then. So, Jen Thompson.
What a way to that means a lot to me. Thank you. I would agree with you. I don't know if I'm more powerful, but I'm more powerful to me. Well, I'm definitely more powerful to me, and that is the point. Thank you.
Jen Thompson, the book is Wild Pivot, Notes from a Political Life Rewritten. It will be released and distributed by Simon, why do I always say Simon? Simon & Schuster in September on the 22nd. In 2026, we will have a link in our description. And absolutely, everybody, I encourage you to get out there and really read this book, because I think it's going to be something that really is going to be very important. And Jen, you're coming back. We're going to hound you to get you back.
Any invitation, Mark.
We're going to hound you.
You all are the best. I've had the best time. I'm so.
I've been writing down.
I've loved it.
I've been writing down stuff.
Thank you, Jen. It's a privilege.
And I said, "Oh my gosh, we've already been over an hour." I said, "The heck with it. We're good with that. We're going to go."
Yes.
But yes, people, Wild Pivot, Notes from a Political Life Rewritten, released 22nd of September.
And sign up for Jen's Substack, everybody.
And we will have links to all of that. Sign up to all of that with Jen, because I think you're going to find it very interesting. Jen Thompson, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Honor.
My pleasure. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. And we'll see you again.
Can't wait.
And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We want to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing team, Apple Podcasts, the largest source of podcast and music online, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your destination for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. And most importantly, we want to thank you, our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society could not be possible. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on the platform of your choice. It's easy, it's free, and helps our channel grow. For questions or comments, you can reach us at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So on behalf of Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershworth, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power of society is knowledge. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium dedicated to providing solutions to social and political issues for NGOs and international government agencies. Through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research, the Phoenix Research Group advances understanding and practical strategies for complex challenges. The Phoenix Research Group is a division of the Phoenix Research Institute, the producer of the Nova Society podcast.